31 days and a few hours and change until the Modern Warfare beta, or at least the beginning portions of it on PlayStation 4. I think that includes the pre-order time where you get that day exclusivity, on top of it already being PS4 exclusive to begin with. But that's when people will start to first finally experience Modern Warfare for themselves on their own consoles, on their own accounts, and start to get their own first-hand look and take at what the game will offer in the upcoming year. And so I kind of wanted to just talk in a general perspective about what's up on deck for the next year, because as of recently, we've had some discussion going around the community that points to this being the biggest post-launch game to date, the biggest post-launch Call of Duty that we've ever seen. And that's some big shoes to fill, and along with it comes some really big positives and some potential really big negatives. So today I want to talk about kind of where we're at, where we'll be going within the launch of October 25th, and also what this means then for the future afterwards. The post-launch content like DLC and how that'll be handled, and what all we can expect here out of this, and have a general conversation about it all. So that said, as we get into this, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Is there anything in particular that out of what you've seen so far you're tremendously excited for, you're impressed with, or maybe vice versa, maybe you're not so impressed with? And also where you think the future will bring the game and what is up on deck in the next year or so. That said, let's jump into it. Now, I'm going to start out with the positives here and start more so on the forefront of everything, because what we've seen so far is the pure artistic vision of the game, and obviously we have the launch of the game coming up sooner than the post-launch content and the support there at this. And I've said it since May whenever I ended up playing this for the very first time at a press event at Infinity Ward, that this feels like the most polished build I've ever played of a Call of Duty title this early on. I know that initially whenever we jumped into talking about the game and what I experienced back in that time, people are like, wait, it's still an alpha? But realistically, in the developmental perspectives of how we consider them, they're more so arbitrary than what we end up associating with it. Alpha and beta are just relative timetables that are used to progressively denote where the game is at in relation to the target schedule. So I know that I caught a couple of people off guard when I said the game felt tremendously good in a pre-alpha and alpha stage back in May. They're kind of confused that why isn't an alpha this close to launch, when realistically that's nothing out of the ordinary. But even then it felt like the most complete version, and I said it would go toe-to-toe with Black Ops 4 at that time, and it wasn't even a released game. But in terms of what's even on offer, this looks to be the most complete that we've seen, and I think that's due because for the first time in a while, there hasn't been any reports of, and nothing looks to point like there were any developmental turmoils throughout this entire 3 years. Infinity Ward has stated that they were working on this game even before Infinite Warfare ever finished its main year of content, which means that we've had even more time, and without any developmental crossroads or turns or forks in the road that they had to change something up drastically, they had the entire time to devote strictly to that vision, and I think that it shows. With a campaign, Spec Ops, and MP all looking to be absolutely kick-ass. We saw a campaign in May a little bit, you guys have yet to see it, but it's hardcore, brutal, and overall just gripping. And I think that if there's even half the intensity of what we saw in those 3 missions in the rest of the missions in the game, it could tell a story that's up there with the absolute best of COD games made to date. I'm talking maybe even top 3, top 2. Spec Ops, admittedly, we haven't seen much of or heard of. From the events that we've done as press, we haven't seen any gameplay of Spec Ops. This, I swear to you. That stuff usually isn't shown off until closer to launch, and if it's something that would be included in a press event, it wouldn't be until like about a month out from the game's launch or so. It's the same thing that goes with Zombies. That's never really shown off all that much. We had a little bit of like trailers and stuff for Black Ops 4 at the reveal event in May, but gameplay itself and everything like that, we didn't see until right around launch. So that stuff normally happens a little bit later, but we've already had an absolute smorgasbord of things showcased to us, and a lot of it is way more in depth than whenever we went into this thinking about it, what it could hold, than I ever anticipated. I mean, just the gunsmith alone and how you handle weapons, that's absurdly in depth. You have 30 to 60 weapon attachments per weapon. You can change things down to the caliber of the bullet you use. There's visually changing items as well whenever you can utilize, again, those weapon changes for the caliber of bullets and the attachments. You can take the AK-47 and subsequently make it the 74U with the right attachments and loadout, and again, that caliber of bullet change. You can change the classes and weapons on the fly in the game. That kind of stuff is stuff we haven't seen in Call of Duty, and it's actually insane. And then you take a look look into things like 10v10, 20v20, upwards of 50v50 and up, they're going all out for that MP experience, and so much so to the point that they're already complete into a level of certainty that this will perform well, that they're adding in even the small minute details that aren't worked on unless that core game is that done. Things like the Tamagotchi, a little customization play on the Tamagotchi, that toy from ages ago, coming back and being something that cheers you on when you play it. And then you have the wristwatch timer set to your console's time as small details you might not notice. And that in particular is something that I talked with Joel Emsley about. And really, it's a really minor detail that developmentally is way easier to execute than you'd think. So having a one-on-one conversation with him, he assured me that that is nothing that anybody should really be worried about. They're not taking their focus off to do things like that. That was just a little thing they could add in because they were so far along and it was so easy to do. So the launch of the game looks to be absolutely massive, but then you take into account everything after that too. We still have at least 1 year of main content support for Modern Warfare coming after that, and we already have a big ticket item, a big full complete game for the first time in a long time coming in October. And so the prospect of the biggest, what is promised, largest post-launch content pipeline, that's hefty. That's got some weight to it. But what we know of up on deck is that we don't have a season pass this year. To our knowledge, the maps will be given to us for free. We have no other information outside of that on weaponry, the info on events, no info on collections, no info on drops, no info on if there's a tier system, none of that, just simply that we won't have a season pass, which that in and of itself is good because sure, there's a slight delay still that there's PlayStation 4 getting it a week beforehand, but then there's no fragmenting of the community with each map pack. Everyone then will have access to them. So here's the hoping that this time next year, I won't be in a lobby with a full 6-man team trying to sweat out for a CWL placement in a regular TDM match effectively, because more casuals don't normally buy the map, so the further along you'll end up playing in the year, the more dedicated and likely grindy players that you'll experience in that time, so the competition just becomes tougher and tougher in casual matches, which for me at this point in Black Ops 4 in particular, I'm just playing to kill time. I don't really care anymore to go balls to the walls, and I'm sure that a lot of you guys agree with that. I just want to relax. But I digress. We also then have the prospect of a battle royale coming from Raven Software, and that's an entire different layer that is just an absurd level of content. We're used to 3 modes, one being single player, mostly not huge replayability, but then when you add in the whole package and add on another thing like battle royale, that would make this definitely the biggest project that we've seen so far in the Call of Duty franchise. But that's all good and all, but what was said recently in the recent Activision Blizzard earnings call was that this is going to be the largest post-launch content pipeline planned for Modern Warfare. And at first glance, this sounds absolutely awesome, but it also may sound familiar because this is exactly what we heard with Black Ops 4. So while I do have hope, it's also pretty terrifying of a statement to hear again, given how everything this past year went down. Black Ops 4 introduced some cool things like regular updates via events and seasons, but they also introduced the coolest parts about those updates in progressively worse ways. When we think about it, things like Absolute Zero were actually pretty cool. They introduced new maps, we ended up getting a new specialist, we got a new POI and Blackout, same thing with Grand Heist to an extent. Blackout got some cool things for free, but then we saw the introduction of supply crates coming back into the game, we saw things being heavily pushed into reserves, then we saw things with Spectre Rising, getting a little further down that rabbit hole until Days of Summer finally introduced ranged weapons exclusively in reserves, and then, well, you know where we are now to this point. Now, granted, Infinite Warfare and Infinity Ward had a better track record than Treyarch and Black Ops 4 in my immediate defense here for this. Infinite Warfare had a collection system, keys to organically unlock and earn things, as well as other things like the prototype lab that you could use salvage for. The season pass holders got weaponry and so on and so forth, to which Black Ops 4 had none of that, nor did Black Ops 3, so it's kind of 2 strikes to maybe a half a strike. But here's the thing. With free-to-play maps and the prospect of a free-to-play battle royale, that's going to be prime real estate to make up for where revenues might not be coming in organically as they're so used to. The season pass isn't going to generate, obviously, any revenue because there's not one, and so they're going to try and make money back in other ways, probably via MTX. And that's kind of the part that I'm worried about. The core base part of the game looks fantastic, if I'm honest with you. But when you take a look at in the industry how egregious MTX are in a free-to-play game, because, well, that's where they make up their money because the base entry is free, you have things like COD Mobile, a free-to-play battle royale possibly coming, and a free post-launch season. Any reasonable person would say, you know what, we're making a ton of money here and we can monetize the free-to-play element of COD Mobile or maybe even the BR. Let's leave Modern Warfare's core game alone. but it's also Activision we're talking about. And the major demographic of the COD player base are the ones who don't pay a lick of attention to YouTube. I know that I've made more heavily criticizing videos in the past 3 months than I ever have, and I know that a lot of my peers have as well. The majority of this community has condemned the MTX model and how it's being handled, but again, we're not the vocal even minority of the game here. We're not even something that accounts for a dent of that. And you know what happened in those 3 months? Sales actually went up. This past quarter, Activision Blizzard made $800 million for microtransactions across their titles. Now, granted, that's not all Black Ops 4, that's not all Call of Duty, but when you consider that, it scares the ever-living hell out of me. Because when free-to-play games are the most heavily monetized, we have potentially 3 this year that we all know one won't be enough. They're not just going to monetize COD Mobile and be like, nah, you guys over on Modern Warfare, you're good. Don't worry, we got you covered. We're making our money here. They're going to extend over into that. I just don't want it to be amplified from what we saw with Black Ops 4 and making things way more worse. I've talked with friends in the community and we're incredibly excited about this base game. I've said it and I will say it so many times. The pure artistic vision as Infinity Ward sees it is absolutely fantastic. And we all agree this is honestly one of the biggest, most ambitious, and most complete projects that we've seen yet. But naturally, we're all scared for what lays ahead after the critical acclaim is in, after the reviews come out, after those Christmas sales are finalized, and after the dust settles. It's like the example of why Twitter won't add an edit button, because you could say something, get all this praise and traction and hype for something, and then just completely change it, do the old switcheroo in 180 to something that is incredibly messed up, but the former praise can't be erased at that point. It looks like something that's completely changed but still has great ratings. That's essentially what happened with Black Ops 4, and what I'm fearful will happen again here for this, where the base game will be fantastic, but once everybody says great things about it, that's when it just goes downhill. I'm just hoping for something different this year. I'm playing it by ear until then, I guess. And like I said, I stand by the fact that I love what I've played so far. I love the pure gameplay untouched by MTX. I love what they're doing at Infinity Ward. I love anything untouched by the business decision. And I hope that I can say that again and start to retie my impressions to the game, to the entire package as a whole, and not a segment of like I had to with Black Ops 4, where I did enjoy the core gameplay for a while, and I absolutely hated the MTX, but I still liked the core content updates of, say, Ground War or Pandemic for recently. I enjoyed that kind of stuff, but the MTX not so much. That said, the beta kicks off on September 12th for pre-orders on PlayStation 4 and an open beta on the 13th, and the cross-play beta the weekend to follow, so I'm holding off on any pre-orders. I say you do the same until you can make your own informed decision about the game, but that's where we're going to wrap it up. We're going to talk a little bit about the entire package, give my thoughts on everything here with this, and what lays ahead. So let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Is there anything in particular that you're really looking forward to this game, or are you having the same concerns that I myself may have? Whatever it is, feel free to let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. But hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to drop a like down below. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things Modern Warfare, all things MP, and anything else relating to the game. We got you covered here up on the channel. So any of that stuff interests you, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing. If you guys also want to follow me over on Twitter and Instagram, there's the best place to get connected outside of YouTube. I live on both those. If you guys want to strike up a conversation, ask me a question, whatever that may be, those links are down there in the description below. That said, thanks so much for watching. Marcus Espresso. I'll see you guys later. Take care and peace.